Hey everyone, welcome to our panel today on Go on mobile gaming accessibility. I'm Kyle Abbate, QA analyst for Lost Boys, also born with a cerebral palsy and have mobility issues or condition. And so I'm here today to kind of lead our panel on mobile gaming accessibility. And we'll kind of go through introductions, and Jesse will start us off.
Sure, thank you. My name is Jesse Anderson. I am legally blind. Have been all my life. I've been a gamer all my life pretty much as well since the Atari 2600 days. Really got hooked on the NES. Um, I run the illegally cited YouTube channel, Twitch stream, and website. And also by day, I work as an assistive technology specialist for the state of Minnesota.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Licia?
Hi, I'm Felicia or Felicia Prehn. I've been also legally blind since birth. I was born with cataracts, but they were removed when I was 25, but that didn't really do anything. The Finnish government considers me 90% disabled and having 2% vision, so take that for what you will. I've been working in the Finnish game industry for almost 7 years. I was one of the first people in Finland to talk about game accessibility. I'm an avid mobile gamer. I'm also a DJ. I make Eurodance, and yeah, I have a ton of different kind of hobbies and things that relate to both games and music. And I am super happy to be here.
Awesome, thank you. And Shell.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shell Little. My gender pronouns are she, her. I am an independent accessibility specialist, inclusive designer, and public speaker. I'm currently on a burnout recovery sabbatical, but I continue to focus my time on speaking and writing. I am a big gaming nerd. I stream on Twitch casually under the handle Sister Paws, and am a big mobile gamer as well. Excited to be here. I have cognitive disabilities that affect gameplay for me, as well as some hypermobility issues that do affect my hands and wrists. So those are kind of where my barriers come from in gaming. Excited to be here as well.
Awesome, thank you. I guess we'll start off with our first question: how our disability affects mobile gaming, and what mobile devices makes them different, better, or worse than gaming on other platforms? I'll kind of go a little bit real quick and talk about. Usually, I like to play games where my phone can be vertically, because where it mounts on my wheelchair, it's Velcro, and so I can only play with it like up and down. And so horizontal games where you have to hold two hands or whatever is really difficult for me. So anything where I can play vertically or have the option to play vertically versus horizontal orientation makes it super easy for me. And then other platforms, I always have my phone on me. Like it's always mounted on my chair. So it's like it's so easy. The ability to access it at all times is makes it pretty great. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, well, being legally blind myself, I play a lot of games, PC, console, but I do play quite a few mobile games as well. The main difference for me, though, is, of course, you're talking mobile, so you have a smaller screen. Playing it on even a large phone, I have a 13 Pro Max, iPhone 13 Pro Max, and even with a large screen, some games can be harder to see, especially if they have really small text or a lot of small user interface items, that kind of a thing. When I play mobile games, especially like iOS type of games, I will typically start on my iPad because it's generally a larger screen. And then if I need to, learn the game, learn the interface, or read any tutorials, that kind of a thing, it's generally a lot easier to do. And then if I find the game is more, that I think it would be easy enough to see more mobile, then I will continue to play it on my phone, that kind of a thing.
Hi, all right, Licia, go ahead next.
Yeah, so for me, obviously, the bigger the screen, the better. So I currently play on a Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus Ultra, and I'm super happy with the screen size. In the past, I had a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. I've basically only had Samsung Galaxy phones for the past 11 years or so. When I lived in the States, I had first a T-Mobile Sidekick 3. I'm that old. And then I had a G1 Google phone thingy. And I found playing games, especially on the Google phone, super difficult. But I found that the Galaxy series phones, especially the Ultras and the Pluses and whatever else, the screens have been big enough that I can kind of be independent, but then at the same time, a lot of tutorials and things, as Jesse mentioned, I find myself needing to, I find myself needing to take screenshots of the text and then go into my gallery app and then zoom in. So yeah, I would say I've tried iPhones before. I have for work and iPhone 13 Pro, but I still find, for example, that screen to be too small to really meaningfully play much of anything. So for me, the bigger the screen, the better. And of course, if a game would have the zoom option, that'd be great, but it's quite rare for a game to have that, especially in, tutorial or text modes. But just being able to zoom or take a screenshot, even though it breaks the immersion, is still better than nothing.
Totally
Yeah,
agree.
for sure. I agree. Go ahead, Shel.
Yeah, so for me, I guess issues that come to gaming, overstimulation, be it physical or cognitive. So because it is a smaller screen, games are trying to communicate just as much information. So a lot of times it can become visually overstimulating if there's too much movement, too many effects going on at once, too many calls to action. I find that sometimes in games where it's just there's too much going on. I do find it interesting too. A lot of times mobile games require, for the games that I like to play, I play a lot of simulation games, a lot of puzzle games. They require a lot of tapping, and the tapping for me, my fingers will get overstimulated. So then I have to switch over to a stylus tool. So a lot of times games I have found that have been really helpful where it's a lot of tapping in the beginning, and then you can level up and then have to be less active. So for an example, playing a game that has like an assembly line of cats, because that's who I am as a person. And eventually you have to click a lot less and things become automated. But I think a big thing is the ability to turn off sound effects. A lot of games love to, every time you tap, it makes a noise, and that gets so overstimulating for me. So I think when it comes to mobile games, I think the overstimulation is kind of the biggest barrier for me oftentimes.
Yeah, I can feel that because I feel like a lot of these, sometimes the games are trying to be like casino games where they have so many flashing lights and different things that come at you. And so trying to attract you to when different things pop up when you achieve certain milestones or achievements in the game. Little side note question. What device do you prefer a device, whether it be Android or iPhone, that you feel allows it to be more accessible for the game? Because I've only had iPhone for like years, and I don't know, like maybe y'all have both or only you like one or the other. Anybody can go if anybody would like. Well, let's go Jesse again.
Yeah, I primarily for mobile gaming, I primarily use iOS, iPhone, iPad. I do have a Android phone. I used to have an Android tablet, but that's been kind of out of date for a while. So I've kind of dabbled in both. I generally find like the overall accessibility, especially some of the built-in accessibility features like voiceover and Zoom and things like that, I find to be a little bit more consistent on iOS. But I think both platforms are actually getting quite a bit better.
Yeah, awesome. Licia.
So I've only ever had Android phones until about a year ago when, for testing purposes at work, I got an iPhone 13 Pro, and I've barely used that phone. I feel really guilty about it because, it is for work and I should be, testing and trying things out. But I have ADHD, so sometimes learning new things can be a little bit difficult, and especially learning new technology can very quickly become overstimulating, especially if I have to figure out, okay, where are the accessibility menus? How does this all work, etc. And the screen is small, which is demotivating from the start, if that makes any sense. So on Android, I know how to set things up. I know how to especially on Samsung phones, I know how to force enlarged fonts and things like that. So I think in my case, I just go with what I know. And I'm sure like iOS, as Jesse said, does like amazing things in terms of Zoom and stuff. But because I've never used it really before, it's really hard for me to get into it. And I think I would need to sit down with like another blind person who could like actually help me figure things out, because I just have no idea, and it's really hard for me to learn as such.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
will
sure.
say, oh, sorry, I will
Oh,
say
wait.
that I do like the way that Android does its magnification gestures a little bit better, because the iOS one is a little clunky, but I really like VoiceOver on iOS. It works really well.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have any experience with the low vision accessibility features, but those sound useful at least. Go ahead, Shell.
Yeah, I'm just an Android user. Like I've never owned an iOS product before. So I think what Licia said about like go with what you know. I will say for me, a feature that I really need is because due to a brain injury, I'm sensitive to blue light. So I have red light filters running on every it's right now on my computer, on every device. And I do appreciate that it's a separate app, so I have the control to take it way past where a lot of times like nighttime, they have those built into a lot of OSs now where it's like nighttime mode. I don't need nighttime mode. I need brain injury mode. So I need to be able to crank it up way past where somebody would want it. And oftentimes, because it is an Android app, because it works so well with the settings in Android, it's able to override a lot of games. So I am able to still play it. Like if a game won't let me run my filter on it, I cannot play the game. And I have my phone for my Android. I have one that has like a second screen. It opens up. The second screen will not run the red light filter. I can't use that second screen, which really stinks because there's some games that are apparently fun to play with the open screen. So for me, it's Android. Nothing against OS, just never owned any iOS products.
What's the name of the red light filter in case people want to know at home?
Oh, yeah. The one that I use on my PC is Flux, and the one that I use on my cell phone is Twilight. And both of those run really, really well for me. Depending on, some of them have like settings that it can get darker at night. So like I'm more prone to migraines at a certain time, so I can turn up the light automatically for myself, which is pretty cool.
Awesome, cool. I haven't heard of those, so I might have to try it. I've heard of Flux, but not Twilight. So I might have to try it for my phone at least. Moving on, we'll go with what mobile game has the least barriers for you and why, and what makes them accessible. For me, I've been playing, I discovered like there's a genre that got really popular called Vampire Survivors on Steam. And it's like a bullet hell where you move around. And so now like mobile games have picked that up on that genre. Ooh. And Survivor.io is pretty one of the ones I've been playing. And so you can like just hold your finger and move your character around. The controls are pretty easy for a mobility user. It doesn't require lots of fast-paced movement. It is continuous movement for like, because the levels are so long, like 15, you get to survive for like 15 minutes, like playing constantly. It's definitely a lot harder and get tiring a little bit easier, but I've been enjoying that. I do play some like TFT and Hearthstone, and sometimes because those card games are easy just to click and drag, even though you do have to play, if I can have someone put the game sideways or whatever on my phone or whatever, then I can play it. But I don't usually, if I'm by myself, I won't play games where I have to have it, where I have to have the phone horizontal for me. Jesse, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, glad you mentioned Vampire Survivors, and I did not know about that mobile version. I will definitely have to check that out because early this year I was really hooked on some Vampire Survivors. I'm going to kind of split things into kind of two categories because I do follow both like mainstream visual games, and then I also kind of follow voiceover accessible or audio games. And so a few visual games that I typically have been playing. I really like the classic Jetpack Joyride. It's been out for ages. It's been updated consistently, and they just came out with a sequel for Apple Arcade that I've been pretty hooked on. It's kind of an endless runner. You're going to the right, and you're just dodging things, collecting coins, and there's actually the second one is more level based, so that one's really fun. Visually, it's pretty clear. Another one that I really that I keep coming back to is Threes. It's kind of this sliding tile game where you match numbers and you try to get the tiles to the highest numbers you can. It's very, again, low vision friendly. There's large numbers. You have a light and a dark theme if you want. The contrast is generally really good. And I do apologize if you happen to hear a weed whacker in the background, because apparently now is the time they decided that was a good idea. But But yeah, those are a couple. And then I've been playing like, like the Super Mario Run, and even like the Mario Kart, what is it, Mario Kart Tour, I think it's called for iOS. I've been playing that a little bit on my iPad. Blind accessible games, I totally have to mention a few. Unfortunately, they're no longer available, but I really have to again give a shout out to the Something Else games that were on iOS for a long time, and everybody loved those. They used binaural audio. They used like the gyro sensors, the touchscreen, just did really cool immersive audio games on iOS, and one of the first ones that I really remember taking off. Things like Audio Defense, Zombie Arena, Papa Sangre 1 and 2, The Night Jar, and so sad they're not available anymore. I would love to see them come back and like put them into Apple Arcade or something. A couple other ones that are available. There's one called Fear, Feer, Running Blind, and it's kind of a forward, like first-person endless runner, and they have different themes. There's like a like a haunted, like a zombie one. There's a kind of a robotic mechanical one. It's just a really cool, really fun game. Blind Drive is also really interesting. Kind of an arcadey type of racing type of thing. And the last one that I want to shout out is Swordy Quest, which is a mobile RPG. It's a mainstream game, and it's very visual. Like there's a lot of graphics, a lot going on visually, but this developer has done, I believe it's a one-man developer, and he's just done a fantastic job of making the game not only voiceover accessible, but intuitive to play and get around all the visual screens and interfaces. Just an excellent job.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lot of games to go through. I'll have to go through.
Yeah, sorry.
Check those out. And to my list. Go ahead, Licia.
Yeah, so I play a lot of match threes because
Yes.
I am not colorblind. So for me, they're actually quite easy since I'm focusing only on colors. So they're not overstimulating at all. They're very much just, the most kind of low barrier, low effort game for me. The one match three that I played the most, I'm not going to plug due to current global events, but I now play a lot of Mittens, which is a Netflix game. I really enjoy. It's a lot of fun. Again, you're just matching, and then when you match things, you get a certain amount of points, and then you can get different crocheted things for your cat. It's very cozy. But in general, match games or match three games, they provide me with I don't know, kind of the easiest entry barrier. I was thinking quite a lot about this question actually because I play a lot of Pokemon Go, but in thinking about this question, I realized that even though Pokemon Go is arguably the game that I play the most, it's also one of the hardest games I play, and a game that gives me probably the hardest time as a visually impaired player. So I can't say Pokemon Go, unfortunately, in terms of barriers. I play a lot of low threshold sensory games as well. So Wordle or I think the game is called Block Doku or something, where you're kind of like just trying to fill in different squares. I play quite a lot of these because not only are they, low stimulation for me, but they're also games that, the Block Doku one that I play, it's blue blocks on a white background. So it's super easy to see. And for me, a lot of times when I'm playing a mobile game, it's very much, I'm on the tram and I want something to play, or I'm, sitting at a bar and I'm super bored while my friends are arguing. I want something to play, So those low threshold, low stimulation games are a super big help. Sometimes I also play like classic games. Like I play a lot of backgammon on my phone, which makes me sound like I'm 80,000 years old. But that's also for me quite easy because again, you have black pieces and you have white pieces. So you can at least for me, I can very easily see. I think the running theme in all of this is anything that is high contrast is easy. Like y'all talked about, these kind of bullet hell games or whatever and RPGs on the phone. I think for me, they'd probably be impossible. just because there's a lot of things to see, a lot of small details. I could never. But it's really interesting to hear that Jesse likes those games, and it just shows how, being visually impaired and low vision, it's such a spectrum, because I could never imagine myself playing a game like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. The cross pollination, I guess, of the games that we all play is cool to talk about and to experience. Shell, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, when it comes to mobile games, a lot of times I find myself understimulated watching, say, a show, and it's not giving me enough. So then I'll pull up my phone and play a game, a passive game on top of that. What's really interesting about panic disorders is, which I'm finding more and more these days, is your body doesn't know if it's stress from the fun of a video game or stress from like a panic thing. So for me, I'm playing very cozy games these days. I also play match 3 games, and I like simulation games and puzzles. So a puzzle game that I really love was the Monument series. It's an MC Escher style visual kind of brain warping. But what I like about games is that, like, low stakes, and you can walk away from them whenever. Games that lock you in for certain times, I can't play those personally. So I really appreciate games where you're able to just, make a couple moves and then walk away for puzzle platformers or puzzle games. I also like to play a game. It's called Water Sort. So it's like you get a bunch of different vials and they have different colors, and you have to, pour the water in. So like these nice puzzle games where you're able to just kind of pick away at them. And if you fail, you just restart. I think for me, the kind of the simpler the game, the more self-explanatory the game, the better for me, as to not get overwhelmed and not to get overstimulated. I do unfortunately struggle. Some of my favorite games are actually ruined by the ad interfaces, which can be just so overstimulating when you've got ads running in the bottom. Like if you want to pause my game and say, watch this ad for 30 seconds, that's quite different than I'm going to continuously have a rolling ad at the bottom of this puzzle game where you're trying to focus. Those end up being pretty big barriers for me. But I have found, a lot of times these games are coming out with paid versions, so you can get rid of that. So I actually got a game back that had been dead to me because I was able to pay like $1.99 and get rid of the really annoying rolling banner of ads that were just going and going. So that's really cool. But yeah, another game that I love is Cats and Soup. It's just like really great passive simulation games. You get cats, they make you soup. And a story. It's great. But yeah, it's interesting watching these games kind of evolve. A lot of the games I play are constantly being updated, and you're like, they can add a feature that can ruin the game for you, and then the next update it goes away and you're back to being able to play. So it's pretty interesting that way. But yeah, I would definitely say most accessible game would be Monument for me.
Is it okay if I jump in? Because
go ahead.
Yeah, I have a thought too. Go ahead.
Yeah, Shell touched on something that I also really struggle with, and that is I have no problem with games that have, running ads, or watch this ad and get, 100 free, whatever, or, just making me force watch it. But the second there's ads on the bottom, ads on the top, anything that I could accidentally confuse for part of the game is really stressful. And I think the worst is when ad companies kind of know that, okay, they have a banner space in a game that's a certain amount of pixels, and they try to make that banner look like something else. So I click on it thinking it's a part of the game, and then it's actually an ad. And it makes me feel like, first of all, it makes me feel bad because I literally work in mobile games, right? Like I should know better, but it makes me feel deceived. Like, oh, they're purposely targeting people as dumb as me to click on these ads. And then it makes me upset with both the ad provider, the company that, put the ad there, and then also the game, knowing that they're allowing kind of these specific, like predatory things that are meant to trick people who aren't paying attention to thinking it's, somehow part of the UI. It can make you feel super bad. And I will quite often, I'll pay up to like $10 to not have ads if it's a game that I really like, just to not get tricked, basically, because it makes you feel stupid.
Yeah, the UI pop-ups too, that like in a game that you have to constantly get rewards, so you're constantly tapping the screen, and then they'll be like, and they'll throw it in there. It feels quite insulting, where it's like, learn our game so we can trick you. It gets really frustrating. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was trying to think of how to do that. Yeah, I mean, I am fully willing to pay for a game. I understand a lot of things are going free to play or, like service type of games and stuff, whether it's mobile or PC or console. But like, I agree with everything you both said about, some of these predatory, like you learn how to play the game and then they kind of trick you for part of the interface, or just even, like being able to play the game. Like you said, I'm really willing to pay a few bucks to unlock, to both A, support the game because I like it, and B, to get rid of the ads. But like, just as much as accessibility, I think it's almost 50-50 for me. It's become to the point, especially in mobile games now, where I actively look at how aggressive the microtransactions and like pay to win and all those types of schemes are, because it's like, either you have to worry about a bunch of timers or endless grinding, or there's just things that are really stacked against you. Um, And so if there's a game that I would ordinarily like, but if it's way too aggressive with like 18 currencies and all this kind of stuff, I will stop playing it almost immediately, because I'm like I said, I'm all for supporting a game financially, but I've just really hated seeing that trend in gaming overall the last several years.
Yeah, I think the monetization trends in mobile and the gotcha mechanics, especially with like the popularity of Genshin Impact and the popularity of Candy Crush and all those
And
styles.
it's infesting console and PC games as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially in the industry as a whole. Kind of moving on to the next question. How do you guys go about choosing mobile games, and then like what features do you look for, what genres do you look for, as well as maybe even how long do you give a game like a trial period of like, do like, maybe it may not be might as accessible as you think from the beginning, and then you play it, oh, maybe it's more accessible. So kind of walk us through what goes into choosing and how long you play. Jesse, go first.
Sure. It's for visual games. I kind of look at, what people might recommend online. Maybe I'll see something listed in the App Store, or, there's a few YouTube channels that I'll follow that cover some mobile games. I'm like, oh, that actually looks interesting, and so I'll try it there. For blind accessible games, I look at AppleVis a lot. The AppleVis website is a really good one. But really, I look for games that really take specific advantage of mobile. Again, I like the match 3 games too. I got so hooked on Puzzle Quest back in the day. Um, but I look for games that use the mobile platform well, that aren't just like shoehorning PC and console games onto mobile with like virtual touchscreen controls that emulate a controller. Those just never really work well. So things that use, taps and simple gestures, something that I can pick up and play for a few minutes, or, play for hours while I listen to my podcasts or audiobooks or something. Those are the type of things that, like a lot of the type of games that everyone else has been mentioning, I'm like, I'm gonna have to look up some of these because they sound interesting. But again, being able to see things clearly, avoid small text and small UI. If it has voiceover support, so I can use a screen reader to access any text areas. And then again, I also really look at what is the monetization scheme and ad. Like, can I pay to get rid of ads, or can I, just when I get the game or buy the game, can I play it when and how I want?
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Licia, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think Jesse is maybe much more methodical than I am. I just go to kind of like the top charts on Google Play. I see what people, in Finland or wherever else are playing. I'll download it, and if I can play it, I can play it, and if I can't, I'll delete it. So I'll give it, a solid couple of minutes, and if in that couple of minutes I don't struggle and I have fun, then I keep going. If I struggle, if I can't see anything, if I find that my immersion is being broken because I need to constantly, find workarounds for how to read the text, or if, in other ways it's just not visually possible for me to play, then I delete and I move on. So, because I found that, my vision and the way it works is so unique, I guess. Like there are plenty of people who are born with cataracts, but I've never it's really hard for me to read even like audio gamers, the forum, which is amazing, by the way. It's really hard for me to kind of like find recommendations even there. It's the only way I can really know is if I download it myself. So I don't really have a set list of criteria beyond can I play it? Is it difficult? And if I can play it and it's not difficult and I have fun in the process, then I'll keep playing. And if not, I will uninstall and move on.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great thing. You can kind of install and move on as you choose, and depending upon how the game brings you in or pulls you away. Shall go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a bit like Licia. I just, just try it out. For me, I take like game recommendations from friends. I think the biggest thing for me as coming to like, unpacking my own internalized ableism of just being like, oh, you suck at games. It's like, no, I don't suck at games. There's just barriers for me. I think the biggest thing for me was walking away from games that are just so inaccessible. They're probably never going to be fun for me. And that's kind of like, it's weird to think about like, do I pick the games I pick because I actually like them or because they're the ones that have the least barriers? Whereas like, I can't necessarily play like you guys talking about the vampire survival games where it's just like my partner's a huge Path of Exile player. That's just way too much for me. And would I like that game if it wasn't too much? I don't know. So for me, I am looking for those simulation games, those, those simple puzzle games or match 3 games. It's kind of like whatever tickles the fancy, I guess. Like I like games that are cute, okay? So like if it's got a chubby cat on the freaking cover, it's a most likely download for me. But for me, I do give it the first couple rounds. I really struggle to get through tutorials because of my ADHD and because of just feeling overwhelmed sometimes. If your tutorials are like too overwhelming, I'll dump the game and uninstall. So for me, it's like, I have to see like, am I getting serotonin from this? Is the effort I'm putting in to trying to learn this game, is it worth it? Because oftentimes it's not. Like learning it is so overwhelming that I just can't get even to the fun part, which really sucks with mobile games. It's true for board games for me as well. So I think that tutorial phase is kind of make or break for me. A big thing too, like in terms of settings and things that we look for, if I'm not able to turn off random sound effects or like tapping sound effects, like it's those kinds of settings where it's like, can I make it less flashy? Can I make it less, glitter in your face? Can I, crank it down so it's a little bit less visually overstimulating and oftentimes auditorily overstimulating? Because it gets frustrating when people are like, just mute the game, when I'm like, well, but there's sound cues that I need in the game as well. So and that's just another thing for accessibility. Like if you would have visual cues as well as sound cues, then maybe I could mute the phone and then I could still play the game without losing out on some of the functionality. So those are kind of the settings I look for. But yeah, I think I'm probably the worst person on this panel for abandoning games. Like I have a graveyard that is endless, like of just games that I've just thrown out. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I look for.
I feel like it's also like, it's good because you can like just download and try and then throw it away. Like most of the games are free to play depending upon what it is. And so you just like download, try it, and then, depending upon on the tutorial or whatever the barrier to entry is, you can just move on. And there's millions of mobile games out there that you can just try and see what you find. And I agree with you on the part of like, I feel like when the settings, not a lot of mobile games have a lot of settings you can customize. And so even the phone setting overrides the game setting. And sometimes they don't always work together in tandem and they fight each other. And so it can be very difficult with that as well. We're closing in. I think we've got a little over 10 minutes left over. I think we'll hit our last question. If there's any last words or advice for mobile developers on games or in apps in general that you would like to pay it forward, Jesse, go ahead.
Well, I guess the main thing that I would say is if you are interested in making your game more accessible, please feel free to reach out to people with disabilities, not just at the end of the development process, but early on, because the earlier it starts getting implemented, the easier it will be to add. And, people with disabilities are definitely happy to reach out or to help make their games accessible because we want to play them too. And just a little quick, cheap kind of a cheap plug or whatever. I know we didn't get to touch on due to time things like, the Switch and the Steam Deck, which people also kind of consider mobile, but both of these platforms are also, they lack a lot of accessibility features. I'm glad the Switch has a magnification feature, but really nothing else. And the Steam Deck, which I just got a few weeks ago, is an awesome system, but there's no accessibility whatsoever. So please, pretty please make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. Our brother was looking to get one, but I don't know if I'll pick one up. Go ahead, Licia.
Oh gosh, I'm so happy Jesse mentioned the Switch, because for me, when I think of mobile, obviously I think of phones and tablets and pads, but like, yeah, of course, the Switch is also a mobile game, and that's what I play more than anything: Animal Crossing, Pokemon, everything. And yeah, it's true. There's there's very little accessibility on the Switch. In Animal Crossing, I had to resort to custom designs and things, laying them down on my island to make it more accessible. It's quite silly. So yeah, I would say, to piggyback off of what Jesse said, don't just include people with disabilities in the dev process, but pay them. Like, don't just have these ideas and go on Able Gamers or Audio Gamers or whatever and ask for advice. Like, hire consultants who are disabled, because we traditionally face much higher levels of unemployment than the general population. So employ us, pay us, treat us like human beings, treat us like any other consultant. You might pay lots of money for a business consultant, and then think that you'll get accessibility consulting for free. And that's just not how these things work. So, treat us like the professionals and the experts that we are, and include us in the process. And that's it.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Go ahead, Shel.
Yeah, that's a great call out. That was the call out I was going to make too. Is like, yeah, I do a lot of user experience research for games and cognitive accessibility. I love doing it. It's super, super great. The people who do a lot of the UXR or like XR, they really give a shit. Like, you could tell they do, because they are going out of their way to make sure they're doing any sort of user experience, but then also talking to disabled players as well, which is really cool. So we are enthusiastic about trying to make your games better, because we do want to benefit from accessibility being thought of. I think I don't really know. I don't have any like wise sage advice because it is such a broad spectrum. But I will say, start by thinking of your players, especially in mobile. I think, like, I talk a lot about cognitive accessibility, but to be honest, some of my biggest barriers for mobile are physical. I can't hold a phone for very long, and my fingers get overstimulated. I can't tap. So when we're talking about the Switch, for example, I actually had to buy a gaming keyboard and a gaming mouse for my Switch, which is super cool. They have those out there now. And then, like, on PC, I play on a Razer Tartarus Pro, which I call my gauntlet, and it's a left-handed like keyboard system, so that I cannot hold controllers anymore. So I think thinking about players who have physical disabilities who play games, as well as people who have cognitive disabilities, it's a large spectrum. And if you're only looking at one facet, where you're only focusing on, say, for example, making sure things can zoom, super, super important, but that's awesome, but what else? So I think making sure we're thinking of the diversity of all individuals who are disabled, because my needs aren't the same as Jesse's needs. But at the same time, we do have parts that probably overlap. And I think that's where it's important to talk to a variety of people with a variety of disabilities. So I guess that would be my sage advice.
Yeah, I think it's about casting as a wide as net as possible. I think, and then thinking about like what's the core gameplay loop and mechanics in your game, and then how can we make those mechanics and gameplay loops accessible, and not just like the cookie cutter, like we need to have subtitles and colorblind. Like those are that's like the ramp to get into play your game, as I like to use the analogy. And then once we're there inside playing your game, how do we make your game that is unique? How do we make those things accessible? Would be my advice, and think about that, because I feel like people ask, like, how do we make the most accessible game or whatever? But it's not about, I don't know if we'll ever reach that. And so it's about making what your game is unique and making that accessible, would be my advice. So we'll go ahead and we'll do some little shout outs and find out where people can reach out to you in case they want to reach out and ask questions after the panel. So Jesse, go ahead and give us where everyone can find you at.
Well, sure. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/illegally cited. I do have a website as well, illegally-cited.com. It's just kind of got all my like projects and stuff I've been working on there. I do stream on Twitch, although I've kind of been taking a little bit of a hiatus on that. I hope to get back to that here soonish. But twitch.tv/illegally cited as well. And I am also pretty active on Twitter. So Twitter is at BGFH79.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. Licia.
I'm also on Twitter. My Twitter handle is MC Licia, so LICIA and then P, because my last name is Prehn. So MCLICIAP. You can follow me, you can tweet at me, you can tell me I'm wrong, you can send me pictures of your cat. I would really appreciate those. Anything goes. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll have to send you a picture of my cat after this.
Please do.
Shell, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also the best place to get a hold of me is on Twitter. My Twitter handle is my name, so Shell, SHELLE for Elizabeth, and then Little, LITTLE. So Shell E Little. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Good luck on LinkedIn. Good luck. I don't look at it very often. I'm very sorry. If you are interested in hiring me for any sort of speaking engagement, I do a lot of diverse ability stuff like DE&I. I do cognitive accessibility speaking as well. Interested in that, you can contact me at contact@shellelittle.com. That's kind of where I look for most of my stuff. But again, I am on hiatus kind of right now, so I'm taking only a little bit of speaking engagements here and there. And then finally, if you want to see the shenanigans, like you can find me on Twitch at Sister Paws. I stream whenever I feel like it, but mostly on Mondays and Wednesdays. So you can come hang out and join the goofiness. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
What about you, Kyle?
Me?
Yeah.
I'll do me, okay. You can find me on Twitter at onehandmostly, as well as email 1hmostly@gmail.com. I have a YouTube channel, One Hand Mostly, and Twitch channel on One Hand Mostly. I haven't been streaming or doing videos except for playing League of Legends with my voice or with voice commands. But yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us. I think we'll be in the Discord chat while this panel is going on.
Ooh,
and afterwards.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if you have questions in there, we'll be answering them as you watch us past us, because we're recording this right now. But I hope you enjoyed the panel today and enjoy the rest of your conference. And we'll
You
talk
can
to everyone
also
later.
you can also
Go ahead.
send me cat pictures on Discord.
Yes, in the chat, we'll send cat
Yeah,
pictures.
pictures
in
are
the Discord.
good.
Sounds
But
good.
I hope everyone has a good rest of their conference. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.